Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Shochu'sday. Happy Shochu'sday. It's number 78 from both of us here in Japan. And we've got a special one for you today. Again, 3 weeks in a row, honestly. Maybe even more
Yeah,
than that. But Steven is, again, it's that time of year. He's at the distillery. So we're going to get to see
that's right.
some of the nitty gritty, some of the ins and outs, and hear some not great news about what's going on with the season this year. But hey, Stephen, good morning.
Good morning, Christopher. How are you? I'm just going to point out here before we get started on a Yamato Zakura tour. Hamada Shuzo is behind me, which is the largest producer in Kagoshima. It is directly across the street from Yamato Zakura, which is the smallest. Where is it going? He's just followed me. Come on. Come on, come on. I think I press this button. No, oops. I know what I do. Sorry, this is a new to me gimbal. So here's that's actually that thought.
You're breaking up. Your Wi-Fi seems to not love you at the moment. Did we lose you? Little bit frozen for the moment, so I'll try and fill in while Steven reconnects. That was Hamada Shuzo right across the street, literally across the street. I don't know how much closer you can get. One of Hamada Shuzo's three distilleries that it owns in the vicinity, in that part of Kagoshima Prefecture, which is the Ichiki Kushikino region, and they put out some very famous brands, and they are the leader of the pack in Kagoshima Prefecture by volume sold and shipped. And Yamato Zakura, just right across the street from them, is arguably the smallest producer in the prefecture. So it's quite the juxtaposition. And for those of you who have been following along for a while, you'll know that this is something that we've covered several times in the past. But it really is a remarkable they're remarkable neighbors, to put it politely.
Yeah, sorry about that. Not sure what happened. I guess my Wi-Fi is not very strong. So we're actually in the process of processing the sweet potatoes, and so this is actually the other end of the process. But these are the sweet potatoes going into the steamer. They'll go up. Let's see, get around. So they're going up the. So that long silver thing here. I can't do this. I'm visually dyslexic apparently. That silver angled pipe thing going up this way. That's a conveyor belt that takes them up into the steamer, which is a large machine right there. And these are Kogane Sengan. This week is actually the last week that Tekkan's making Kogane Sengan this year. Shochu, he'll be switching to purple sweet potato very soon, which is great
Good.
news because he's going to be making it this year. I don't know how much he'll be able to make, but he's going to be making it. I think what we'll do first is go around to the back of the distillery so we can see the washing process. And then maybe after that we'll go inside. A little cold here today.
How are the sweet potatoes today?
Today aren't bad. They it does not like to follow me. They're not bad. They're I'll turn it around again. Come on, over here. There we go. So there's Tekkan washing the potatoes. You can see he's super dirty. These are the potatoes. Of course, potatoes live in the ground, so they're quite dirty when they come here. And by the time that's over with, you end up with the nice white, fleshy Kogane Sengan that we're used to. And this is the washing machine that Tekkan uses. Let's see if I can get it down. There's Tekkan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
Yeah,
I can't believe I missed
and
that opportunity.
yeah,
Damn
and
it.
that's the you can see how the washer works. Yeah, and then can you still hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. No problem.
The noise canceling great then because it's pretty noisy here. And then what Tekken will do is he'll inspect the potatoes as they're in the washer and he'll trim away. Like if he finds one that's rotting pretty badly, he'll either discard it or trim that away before it gets to the secondary processing, which is what's
Gotcha.
happening over here. Under this little tent, we've got a couple of fine neighbors who are, if I can, come back to me. Come back to me. There we are. All right. A couple of neighbors are processing the potatoes. So they trim the ends to get rid of the bitter parts, and then they also look for additional rot. And then if they're large potatoes, they chop them up so that they end up getting, so they steam more cleanly all the way through. Because with the
Okay.
large potatoes, you could, end up not getting the steam all. You wouldn't cook this in the center of the potatoes, so you chop them up.
Makes sense.
So
I've had that issue when trying to cook potatoes myself.
sure. Yeah. So this is the processing area. This is actually a married couple, and I found out the other day that the gentleman is 83 years old, which is unbelievable to me. That he still
Yeah.
is as stinky as he is. He's energetic. He's spry. He likes to be the one who drags the basket over from the washer. He
Okay.
doesn't want anybody else to do that. Like he still wants to show that he can get stuff done.
Nice.
He's not the quickest with his knife, but he gets the job
That's
done. So
yeah. That's good because he wants to keep all his digits, I assume.
yeah, I hope at 83 I'm going to be able to do stuff like this. So
I don't think my back or my knees will agree with that type of work at
yeah,
83.
yeah. Now this over here is
Jeez.
actually the bottle washer, which is done outdoors. These are 1.8 liter bottles. They're clear bottles right now because he's bottling the Shinshu, the new make Yamato Zakura from
Mm-hmm.
2021. We actually drank some last night, and it's really, really great. You'll be happy about this, Christopher. It's really great oyuwari. Fantastic.
I'm sure it
And it,
is. I'm sure.
yeah, and
Never
it
doubted it
pairs
for a moment.
actually. Yeah, fair. What was actually really surprising to us because we had a few snacks that we could, some otsamami, basically drinking snacks while we were tasting through it. He and I always have, like, every year we'll sit down one night and have like a long chat over some drinks, and that was last night. And
Oh, cool.
it turns out that the 2021 Yamato Zakura Shinshu is a perfect match with pistachios.
You heard it
And
here first. I like the sound of that.
that's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm
So
gonna
now their
have to
background,
lodge that one in the back of my brain for
yeah,
future
definitely.
use.
It really brought out really interesting character with sweetness in the shochu and then the richness of the nuts. So it was really cool. So now we're going inside the distillery. And I can't see the comments or anything here on my phone, so if anything comes up, just let me know.
Yep.
So this is actually, behind me, this is the sweet potato steamer. And this is the door, which is closed right now, but this is where the sweet potatoes would come out of after they're finished. See if I can get
Uh-huh.
the angle up a little bit. It's a pretty big machine. Um, Still learning this gimbal. And it also doesn't want to keep this focus off of me. So anyway, that's a steamer behind me. Kind of hard to see it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
How long do the potatoes stay in the steamer? Can you guesstimate that?
yeah. Well, the steaming itself is about 2 hours, and then it's they'll then stay in as long as it takes for them to get everything ready for the the main fermentation.
Okay.
Yeah, and it really
Gotcha.
sometimes this comes down to a manpower thing. You need somebody
Yeah.
to actually move the first fermentation, the primary fermentation, into the secondary fermentation tank or the main fermentation tank, and then move the potatoes out.
Yeah, then you got
And
to
then
line up
add
the
butter.
shredder and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. So it's a manpower issue. The gentleman you saw at the beginning who was unloading the potatoes into the steamer, that's his job. So
Mm-hmm.
it tends to happen pretty quickly on days that he's here. But then he's a baseball coach, so he occasionally takes days off and goes and coaches his team.
All
So
right.
that's sometimes a limiting factor. And
I
it was
bet.
kind of noisy over in the main area. So I'm coming over now. We're getting out of order in how you make shochu, but I think our listeners and viewers probably know enough about it that it's not a big deal.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. So now behind me, if I can get this thing to cooperate. This is actually the rice that's used.
Mm-hmm.
So these are how many kilo bags? 30-kilogram bags. He uses 5 a day. This says Hinokari from Kagoshima, but these are reused bags because Yamato Zakura is a tiny distillery, and they tend to not buy rice that comes in its original packaging, just from a cost savings perspective. But it's still high quality. It's food grade rice rather than animal grade. It's not sake grade, but you don't really need sake grade to make sweet potato shochu. And then actually behind me is the still. This is the backside of the still. The pot still.
Yep.
And you can see
there it is.
The line arm there, and then that's the worm tub right there, which is how you cool it back down. And then all new make goes into this green tank right here for storage before it gets moved to the storage warehouse, which we'll visit a little bit later.
Right.
Now, it actually doesn't go directly into that tank. It goes into, here we go, one of these ceramic pots in the floor. This is the pot he's using this year to this one here to fill. I don't know if you can see that there's a gray pipe leading into it. Is that visible? I think it is. It's kind of floor colored, unfortunately. But that's where he's so he fills one of these ceramic pots. This one is 620 liters, and he gets about probably 500 to 550 liters per batch. And that sits in that pot until he's ready to distill again, and that gets moved to the green tank. If he's making one of his standard brands, but also in the floor behind me down here, these are all his storage kame. So this is where he long ages shochu. My absolute favorite brand of his is Takumi, which is the clear bottle with a white label that has a cutout, kind of looks like a paper cut label.
So good.
That's actually aged in ceramic for 1 to 2 years before bottling. And then on the other side, behind me now, this is all the primary, all the fermentation pots. So everything here is clay pot fermented. On the far wall, over where it's very noisy, so I'm not necessarily going to walk over there. I will in a little bit. I guess you can hear me pretty well. But is the first fermentation, the primary fermentation, and then the rest of these pots are all main fermentation. So the main fermentations, one of the rice pots for the primary fermentation turns into 4 of the main fermentation pots. That's the ratio of the rice to the sweet potato approximately. So we can get a good look over here at a rice fermentation. Got one here in front of me. The noise still isn't too bad.
It's not bad. It's kind of messing with your voice audio a little bit, but it's still discernible.
So
there we go.
Rice. There you go. There's a rice koji fermentation. I'm glad this gimbal can hold my thumb strongly. Otherwise, it would be taking a dunk. Got white koji, 150 kilograms of rice, water, yeast, and that'll rest for about a week. And you stir it. Actually, several times a day, you're releasing the carbon dioxide from the alcohol production, and you're also releasing heat from the koji as you stir, and then you're aerating the koji. You're giving it some oxygen to breathe because it's an aerobic organism. And then the yeast is anaerobic, so you're agitating that, and that gives you the aroma. And then this is second fermentation, main fermentation. Kogane Sengan, you get this beautiful, almost mustard yellow.
I wish we could smell that.
Yeah, it's
no
a nice
smell
aroma.
function on that gimbal.
Unfortunately, not. Yeah, I think that may be in the next firmware update.
Yeah.
But that's the one that's going to be distilled today. It's at the point the way that here at Yamato Zakura they know that the fermentation is ready to be distilled when the aroma just starts to not smell as good. Like they actually want it to get past a beautiful aroma into not so pretty, and that's when they
Interesting.
distill. And yet you get that really beautiful, easy drinking shochu, right? Um, and other distilleries, I'm sure, have different criteria, but there's actually primarily an aroma test on when it's time to distill here at Yamato Zakura.
Yeah, it's just years of experience.
Yeah, and then
Knowing
here
where you
again,
need to be.
behind me is the still.
Yep.
Little better view of it from this side. Nothing in there right now. I think he distilled last night. So that
Okay.
fermentation we saw earlier will get distilled probably this evening. And then the last place we'll stop, and this is where we might get a little bit spotty in our Wi-Fi. You and I try to do some zooms from here, and I get cut out sometimes, is the Koji room. And it's going to be
Right.
quieter in here, thankfully. A little bit anyway. And actually, before we go in there, I'm going to turn this around. This is the rice steamer right here.
Yeah.
Where he steams the rice. And then actually in this large tub over here, I think you can see there's actually water in, that's the rice being
That's the rice in
hydrated
there.
after
Okay.
it's been washed. So once the potato processing is finished, he'll drain that water. That rice will go into the steamer, and then he'll steam the rice. The rice steamer takes about 50 minutes for the 150 kilograms. And then this is the Koji room. So these are sacred places, and a lot of distilleries won't even let you inside. But you guys can join. This gives you my special guests.
Mm-hmm.
And it is humid in here. Let's see what it is right now. It is 26.4 degrees Celsius, which is actually not that bad. That's what, about 82, 83 degrees.
84. Yeah, 82-ish. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I'm also
decent
triple layered.
humidity, as I saw on your glasses fogging up immediately.
That's right. It's 75% humidity in here right now. Now, underneath these blankets here is yesterday's rice koji. This is what was made. The rice that was steamed and propagated yesterday is now resting under these blankets. And it's probably about time to break it up. In fact, that breaking up might have already happened. Let me see. Yeah, they've already done it. This is right now 36 degrees. It was probably 42 degrees before they broke it up this morning. It's now 36 degrees, and when it gets back up to about 42, it'll be broken up again and put into these wooden boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So each of these wooden boxes, there's a tray, and that's your rice koji. Now this is 2 days ago, and this will be in a process called day koji, or removing the koji. This will be taken out of these boxes and go into a first fermentation, a primary fermentation, probably around noon to 1 o'clock today, maybe a little earlier than that. And then these boxes will be filled with the rice that's under the blankets, with the koji under the blankets. So it's about a 40, I'm gonna say it's about a 44, 46 hour process here, because we propagate the koji about 3 p.m. The day koji happens about noon. It's about 45 hours, 2 days later. So yeah, it's, I guess, about a 45-hour koji propagation. And these walls it's a cedar lined room, so it is very much like a sauna. The humidity control actually is through these vents in the ceiling, so you open these or close them based on how much humidity you want in the room. Mm. There is steam heated pipes around the floorboards, and that's the only source of heat, and that can be adjusted with the steam. They don't put steam into the room, but they radiate heat from the pipes. And the walls, so outside of the cedar is cement, cinder blocks. and between the cinder blocks and the cedar is actually rice bran to help maintain temperature control.
Yeah.
It's a cozy room, especially on a cold day like this. I mean, my hands are still a little bit chilly from walking around outside for a few minutes, but the rest of me is getting pretty toasty. So, yeah, that's the Koji room. Are we getting questions?
Not really.
Okay. Or he's like, yeah, we've seen this before. When's Lyman going to visit a different distillery? Right?
plus we have ample video as well now that we've been accumulating of said tour. So yeah, I mean our loyal viewers have actually done this tour a few times now, so they probably almost feel like they've been to Yamato Zakura, which is great because it is one of our favorites. The thing that is in the show notes for this week, which we talked a little bit about last night, and I think is interesting for people, is the fact that Tekkan's the Toji of Yamato Zakura, his distilling season is short this year, and yeah. So can you tell us a bit more about what's going on there?
Yeah. So this year has been a really bad sweet potato harvest year. The past 2 years have been bad for purple sweet potatoes. There's been essentially a blight or a disease that's been affecting the purple sweet potato harvests, and that now seems to have started to infect the Kogane Sengan, which is the primary potato used for most sweet potato shochu production.
Yeah.
And so they're just not getting high quality potatoes, and the yields are not great. And so Tekkan is cutting. He normally does 100 batches a year, and he's planning on doing 60 this year.
Jeez.
And normally he starts using purple sweet potato in usually between mid to late December and early January. So he starts to make his purple sweet potato shochu. And this year he's going to start, I guess, right around Thanksgiving. So he's at least probably close to a month early, if not 6 weeks early, on switching his purple sweet potatoes because the Kogane Sengan there's just so little available. Many of the other small distilleries have already ended production for the year. Yeah. A lot of distilleries have stopped making them. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is availability of ingredients. The other is that their sales tanked over the last 2 years, primarily because bars and restaurants weren't ordering.
Yeah.
Right. So some of
they have a lot of stock.
Exactly. They've got existing stock that they can sell. And so they don't necessarily need to make. And of course, it's expensive to make. Let's put my shoes back down correctly. Now, and actually, I think that there's a continuation of the difficulty with sales, because one of the other shochu makers here in town, this past Thursday, so I guess a little bit less than a week ago, had 0 orders. And normally Thursday is a big shipping day because bars and restaurants want the shochu for the weekend, right? And this is a national brand, and on Thursday they had 0 orders, which just suggests that they're in trouble. So
wow.
Now we've been shipping essentially every day here at Yamato Zakura, but it's, I think yesterday somewhere between 18 and 25 cases, something like that, is what got shipped. Which isn't a bad day, actually, for midweek. And he actually hasn't released the Shinju yet.
Okay.
It's being bottled now.
I'll be at the ready. So
yes,
so it sounds like this is. Geez. And when you say that there's a blight, can you describe what that does to the sweet potatoes? I mean, how does a blighted or one of those sweet potatoes that suffered from this disease, this extra rot, compare to a nice high quality Kogane Sengan spud? Sure.
I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I think though that a couple of days ago we had a really, really bad shipment of potatoes. They were the worst I'd ever seen. This is my 9th season coming here to work. I was trying to figure out how many weeks cumulatively I've worked at Yamato Zakura, but it's got to be close to half a year at this point that I've actually spent in the distillery working. And it was absolutely the worst conditioned potatoes I'd ever seen. And it wasn't just that they had like more rotting spots or more damage to their skin or that sort of thing. The skin actually was mottled it looked like it had a skin disease, but then the flesh inside was not as the way the Kogane Sengan, almost the texture of these potatoes, they are like raw potatoes, but they have a little bit more of almost like a pear flesh, like a nashi, like a Japanese or Asian pear. That's almost a crunch sound that you have when you cut into one, right? So they have quite a bit of moisture content. They're really dense, and these potatoes lacked that. They were much lighter by for their size. So they had lost a lot of their I think their water content, and they didn't quite smell the same. And I had a long talk with Tekon afterward, and he was comparing it to supermarket fruit versus high quality fruit, like mass produced fruit versus like what you would buy at the department store here in Japan and spend $30 on a mango versus the $4 mango you get at the local grocery store, right?
Yeah, right. Okay.
And he just felt, he's like, this is not going to make bad shochu, but it's not going to make amazing shochu, right? And he's like, you won't really recognize how inferior it is unless you're drinking them side by side, right? But of course, what he made the other day, which is it's being fermented now, that's going to end up blended into everything else. So it's to be a small percentage of what ends up being in the bottle. But if he bottled it separately and then bottled it compared to his standard, it would be very, very different. He suspects. So yeah, and he said it was the worst that he'd had. Fortunately, the potatoes the last 2 days have been pretty great. So,
so
it's he's got
it's
a
not
really
every farm.
Go ahead. No, it's not. And I was at another distillery where they had great potatoes. I think it really is it's probably regional. Like there's probably infection is spreading, across fields sort of thing. But I don't know how the infection spreads exactly. I'm not a botanist or whatever it takes to understand plant disease, but it's not good.
Yeah, that's some pretty lousy booze news right there.
Yeah, it is. And now Tekon, he has a very good relationship with his broker for his potatoes. He really punches above his weight as far as the quality of potatoes he gets, even though he's such a small producer. It's because he really just takes care of the guy, right? They're really, he treats him with respect, and he always places his orders on time, and he pays his bills, and they've known each other for a long time now. So he's getting the best potatoes he can, but it's still, things like what happened a couple of days ago still happen. So end up with bad stuff. So I guess just a tiny little bit more of the tour. These are the storage tanks. And just because of the size of the distillery, most Yamato Zakura shochu is stored outdoors. You have those few aging pots in the main distillery, and then there's the warehouse here, which has a few more tanks, but not that many actually. You'll see because there's probably 15, 20 outside, and then as we come inside, we've got only 3 or 4 of them. And here you can see Hikari, another beautiful brand, is being bottled today. See the Maikaki label. And what makes Hikari special, besides the packaging, is it's actually made with shinmai. It's made with fresh, rather than stored rice. Pretty beautiful shochu, and it really expresses a lot of the rice character, despite being a sweet potato shochu.
Yeah.
And then here we got the very old bottling line, which
that thing is a dinosaur. It's a fossil.
Tekon's father is constantly tinkering with it. I came in last night looking for Tekon after we'd finished the night work. We were going to have a drink, and I had asked Tekon to get some of the shinshu for us to try, and he disappeared. He didn't come back. And so after I finished taking a shower, I came out to try to find him, and I came in here, and it was like close to midnight, and Dad was in here tinkering with the machine. He's a night owl, though. Yeah. You never see him in the morning. So this is the shinshu, actually, which we've been bottling over the last few. Where is it?
Nice.
It's touch cloudy. It's very lightly filtered. It's a pretty drink. It's really nice. I was impressed with it. And for me to say something nice about a shinshu, it must be good.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah.
That's rare.
But there's all sorts of treasures in here when you dig around. Let's see if I can find some of them. You've got like these are the old buckets that they used to carry the fermentation between tanks.
Cool.
They hold on to stuff like that, and then let's see, and then the bottles in those red cases back there. That's some stuff that's been just aging forever. So they have a lot of stuff that they just bottle and then just it sits, and it'll eventually eventually get repackaged. As you know, they've got the one brand that the blend of rice and sweet potato. It's really long aged. What is it? Todioki?
It's like Toteoki or something like that?
Toteoki, yeah. That's I think at this point it's probably about 40 years old.
They release it very occasionally.
Very rarely released. Let's see. Just a tiny little bit more stuff I can show you. If I can get around these bottle racks, because we've been bottling the Shinshu. He'll bottle 2,000 Ishobin of Shinshu this year. It's pretty big for his size, I think. And then, let's see, that's a storage tank. And then here, this is actually the where is it? Up here. That's the tank. Once you've diluted and you're about to bottle, it goes up into that tank, and then gets shipped back down into the bottling machine.
The bottler.
Yep. His filter, the filter's not here. It must be outside getting washed. And then this is the tank where he actually does the dilution. Yeah. So it gets moved into this tank, diluted, rests for a day or two, then moved to the bottling tank. And then the bottler, the filter's actually here on the ground. Yep, this is
Look at that little guy.
You take off this cap and there's paper filters in there. It's very light filtration. That they do here. It's why it's got such great long finish in their products.
Yeah.
And the bottler is also a dinosaur. This guy here. Only 3 of these little taps actually work anymore, but it doesn't really matter because the flow is not fast enough. You can't keep up anyway. If you tried to run all 6 lines at the same time, you'd just run out of steam and have to stop and reset. So it's pretty analog.
We have a couple of questions. One, both from the same person coming through Facebook right now. One of them asking about the filter paper. Is it carbon filtration?
It is not carbon filtered. It's actually a paper filter, but if you were to hold the filter in your hands, you wouldn't think it was paper. It's thick. And I don't actually understand mechanism. I understand the mechanism of filtration. I don't understand how they manufacture these paper filters.
Yeah.
I don't know where he stores them, so I can't go find one and show it to you, unfortunately.
Probably aren't supposed to handle them, I would imagine. We actually have another question along that line from the same person, Fletcher Anderson, over on Facebook, and he asks, I didn't know that they filtered it. Is that common?
Yeah, I think virtually all shochu is filtered. The primary method of filtration is I guess what do you see most common? I think it is probably the paper plate filter.
Yeah.
Right. They've got these metal plates, and you've got the filters that go in between each of the plates, and then
for bigger distilleries. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what and Tekon's a smaller place, so he's using that other style. But yeah, I would say most, if not all, shochu is filtered. Because of single pot distillation, you get a lot of oil that comes over, a lot of amino acids, fatty acids, and that congeals. And then there's other solids that end up in the distillation or in the distillate, often just from because you're periodically taking off the lid of the storage tank. You're stirring to mix things up and to let some of the gases blow off and that kind of thing. And so sometimes there's a little bit of sediment or a little bit of solids in the distillate when you're ready to bottle, and so you filter to get that stuff out. Sometimes it's just really rough filtration. He's actually got actually, I guess I could have shown you that. He's got a 3M filter that's just basically like just a single sheet of some sort of 3M product that filters very roughly. It catches the bugs that were floating in the tank and that sort of thing. Right? And the other thing that he does is when he opens up the tanks, if he's kind of maintaining the distillate as it's aging, is he'll just take a piece of saran wrap and rub it across the top of the surface because it'll collect the oils that have risen to the surface. And that's often because if the oils are exposed to oxygen for too long, they'll turn rancid, right? And you don't want those off flavors in the final product. So he just uses saran wrap to get rid of that stuff. It's, again, pretty analog.
Yeah. Very, very, very cool to see how it can be done without all of the tech.
Yeah, and so this is actually this is actually the 3M filter that he uses. So it really is almost just like a pillowcase, right?
Yep.
It's got almost I don't know. It's a synthetic, I think, similar to 3M makes all sorts of weird stuff.
They do. They got all of the niche areas covered. We got a question coming in from YouTube right now related to the fermentation. This is from Fission C. Dot. What flavor defects end up in the shochu from using potatoes that are too old but not rotten?
That's interesting because when I first was visiting Kagoshima, there was a style of shochu that I would come across that just had this really, really weird, almost overripe fruit flavor. And that kind of disappeared. And when I asked Tekan about it, he said, "Oh, that's from potatoes that aren't any good. Like that's like rotten potatoes, basically. Like if you're not using high quality ingredients, you end up with that off sort of overripe fruit character." But then the shift that's happened recently is there's now the attempt to create a similar flavor aroma profile using yeasts and things, right? So now you've also got the mango and the lychee and all of these different fruit flavors or aromas, and it's intentional. So a brand like from our friends at Hamada, the Dayame brand, is intentionally lychee forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
But 10, 15 years ago, that would have been considered a fault, but now it's intentional. So it's becoming harder to know when it's poorly made versus versus something that the distiller is trying to do. But I don't know, did you notice that? I feel like there might have been a specific period of time where there had been like maybe too much rain or something, and a lot of the shochu ended up with this very unique kind of distinct overripe fruit character. And I don't taste that anymore. It doesn't come through.
There were a couple seasons in a row not too long ago, like 2015, 2016, when it was like, a lot of late summer rain, huh? Yeah.
So, but then we've got like some distilleries now are intentionally aging potatoes before fermentation.
There's that too.
It's a decision, right? So the Kurio and Tsurushi brands from Yachiyoden, beautiful, beautiful drinks, but they're both with intentionally aged sweet potatoes. And then Tekan actually just did an experiment. He's got one. Actually, I want to talk to you about it. He's taken another variety of sweet potato, aged them intentionally before fermentation and distilled. He made that as an experiment last year. It's beautiful. Really, really nice drink. So won't disclose any more information at this point.
Sure.
That's good.
So
this first Christopher's hearing about it.
Yeah. Well, since it's but he's, if you take proper care, if you've got high quality sweet potatoes to begin with and you age them in a controlled manner, then beautiful things can happen, is what you're saying, basically.
That's right. Exactly.
Got it. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. Well, let me get rid of that banner because that sounds a little bit negative. But anyways, I guess the summary of that discussion was, of course, that it's been a rough year in Kagoshima for folks trying to make Satsuma Shochu being made, of course, from sweet potatoes harvested in Kagoshima Prefecture. If you're willing to source them a bit further north in Kyushu, then you're going to be fine, because apparently I've heard that Miyazaki has avoided the blight thus far. And so I don't know how long that will continue, but that's fortunate. It really is just the very southern end of Kyushu at this point, which is a concern, I guess. And yeah, but seems like Tekkan is soldiering through, so good for him, and make sure to drink some more of his stuff in the near future.
Sure. Yeah, as he always does. Yeah, he's pretty stoic about it. I mean, I think for him the frustration is he can sell everything he makes. He's a really well regarded and very small producer, so for him, any time he misses a batch during the year, that's revenue that will never be regained. And what happens if Shochu goes through another downturn and Yamato Zakura is not so popular? It's but from his perspective, it's just he's always got to striving to make as good a product as possible, expressing the character that he believes suits the brands and suits the essentially the I guess the philosophy of the distillery, right? And yeah, I realized that Yamato Zakura really does have a distinct character to their shochu, which is not necessarily in the direction that everybody else goes. And we were talking about this last time. Shinshu, Yamato Zakura Shinshu, I think.
You're breaking up, man. You might want to go closer to the Wi-Fi source. You froze. Bummer. That was probably going to be interesting. So I'm not sure if Steven will be able to rejoin, but hopefully he can. Hopefully we'll hear him again before we sign off here. Anyways, what you just witnessed was a very thorough. Maybe he's going to be back. A very thorough tour of Yamato Zakura down. I guess you could say it's the northwestern shoulder of Kagoshima Prefecture, the smallest of the half dozen or so distilleries in that part of Kagoshima, and it's a gem. And you saw again here today that it's a very small operation. It's Tekkan, Wakamatsu, and then a few of his regular seasonal employees who come and help very early in the morning, usher the process through the early stages, and then it's a lot of TLC at all points in the process. And Steven just signed off. He's coming back in. Here we go. Let's see if this works.
Sorry about that.
And he's back. All right,
Wi-Fi
we're just signing off
Japan.
now. But what's that?
I said Wi-Fi in rural Japan.
Yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you very much for the tour. I don't know if you have any final comments or anything.
I was just going to finish my thought on, I guess, the philosophy of Yamato Zakura. I don't know how much of that you caught before everything cut out, but for me, the Shinshu really brought it home for me. The Tekkan, Shinshu is just like funk, gas, kick in the mouth, weirdness. And a lot of people like that. That's what a lot of shochu lovers in Japan want to try. But Tekkan wants it to express the beauty and elegance of the drinks that he makes, right? And I think that's part of why I like his Shinshu this year so much. It still has some of the gas character because it's young, and yet it's eminently drinkable. It's really, really mild and quite elegant on the palate, which is pretty uncommon to find in a Shinshu. So
yeah.
That's just something I realized. He's decided to define, and I don't know how much of this came from his father before him, but he's really tried to define Yamato Zakura as makers of sort of a more elegant, soft style of sweet potato shochu that's balanced, got some nuance, some character, but isn't over the top, kick in the head sort of stuff, which is great too. But they're just very different philosophies on how they make their spirit. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. I don't think he'd never be confused with being like Imokusai, right? The stinky sweet potato shochu.
Nope, he doesn't go for that. He he's very meticulous with the spuds that come in every morning, and
Mm-hmm.
make sure that he has a really, really clean fermentation, as we've seen. Yep.
Yeah,
And
yeah, you're right.
it's,
It really is about cleanliness. I mean, I've been in distilleries where the potatoes still have a little bit of mud on them when they're going in the fermentation, and when they drain the tank, there's like sediment at the bottom, and that sort of thing. And the Tekan would be horrified if he found sand in the bottom of his fermentation pots when he's finished.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, extra nutrients. I don't know, but yeah, I harder to clean. That's for sure. So
Yep.
it might, especially because it's completely clay pot fermentation in that distillery. Those are really hard to get to the bottom of. You gotta go head first into them to clean the bottom, right?
yeah.
So,
Did you see his video that he posted on? I think it was on
did.
his story.
Yep.
Yeah, I took that for him. I think it's on my phone, so I'll put that on social media somewhere. Pretty funny. Did you do a newly open? Did you open anything recently you want to talk about? Mine
I
obviously is
just
the
got
Shinshu.
back from another trip, so I don't. Nah. I mean, other than samples, I don't have anything to talk about, honestly.
Yeah, we can save that for next week.
Yeah. I guess.
Cool.
I got
Yeah,
so many
next week
samples. Jeez.
I'll be back on.
Okay, and we can get back to plowing through the Shochu Rakuan bottles too, because another box of those showed up. We got to go through them quickly.
I did cheat and tried the Yamato Zakura Rakuan the other day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
That'll be a fun one to talk about once we get to it.
I'm sure. All right. Cool.
Cool.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And otsukare sama desu. Another season done at
back to-
Yamato Zakura.
A few more hours, and I head back to Fukuoka. So
Get back on the train.
yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
Well, have a safe trip, and all the best to the family. And,
Thanks.
And everybody at Yamato Zakura as well. And
I'll let them know.
we'll talk again soon.
All right.
All right. Well, to everybody out there who has watched episode number 78 of Shochu'sday, thank you very much once again. Thank you for your questions, for your interaction, and for your attention. And we'll be back again next week with a more standard version of Shochu'sday, where we'll both be in our own homes, and we'll be doing the standard format again. So talking a little bit of tasting shop and that sort of thing. But until we meet again, everyone, from both of us here in Japan, a very hearty and heartfelt kanpai.
Kanpai.